What's up everybody, it's Brandon here showing you a project video. This project is probably the main reason I haven't been making tutorial videos recently, so I thought I'd make a video of the project. How intriguing is that? Now as you can see, it's pretty similar to my other video, which is a force mining video. However, there is a twist. As you can see, this is only mining a little bit at a time. But if you look behind me, you can see there's a huge gap. How on earth did I achieve that? Well, let's take a look inside, shall we? So inside we have a force manipulator system, which is set to move this entire base. This entire base consists of the bridge, which is where you move forward and backwards, a Gingy that sits in the AFK booth to make it work all the time, some computer monitors just so we can keep track of what's coming in and out. I'll explain why we've got strange matter and antimatter later. So if we go downstairs, come to the main power room and where the ME is stored. So we've got some EMPs as defenses, one that's going off about every second or so, and one that's just a standard EMP. We got an array of energy cubes. We have 2 fulmination generators, and we have a fission reactor to make sure there's a minimal amount of power at all times. So I'll just go over the fulmination generators quickly. So a fulmination generator generates its power from explosions. The biggest output you can have is by dropping 1 grams of antimatter in, which is what we use. So we've set it up so that we have an export bus set up to our ME. This is activated on pulse. The Rednet sends a pulse once every 30 seconds. So when it hits 30 seconds, it will take some antimatter out of the ME system, take it along a long cable, drop it into the hopper. The hopper then feeds it directly into the ejector because the ejector doesn't have an internal storage. And then it will drop the antimatter into the puddle. And then after 5 or so seconds, the antimatter will explode and it will output 230 megajoules per piece. As you saw upstairs, we currently have 100 pieces of antimatter, so that's quite a lot of power. And because we run 2 fulmination generators at the exact same time, that's around 450 megajoules of power every 30 seconds. Which sounds like a lot, but believe it or not, it is actually needed. This fission reactor only outputs around 700 kilojoules per tick, so it's nothing compared to the fulminations, but this is needed just in case we run out of antimatter. So if we go downstairs, we have the MFFS room and we have the auto processing. The MFFS is probably the most essential room in the building because it protects us, for one, with the interdictions and the biometrics, and 2, you need all these coercion drivers and capacitors just to power the miners on the front alone. Hence why we have so many coercion drivers, and that's also the reason we're probably getting blinded at the moment because all these blue beams just drive you crazy. I will point out, however, because of an in-game glitch, you should never place chests next to interdiction matrices. It's a bit of a flawed system. However, when you try to manipulate it and move it forward, the chest just bugs out and it will cause everyone within a close proximity to crash. So if you do plan on making a similar design, do not put chests next to interdiction matrices. It is essentially a flawed system because you don't know if people are going to die at your house, or have died at your house, sorry. But if you actually want the thing to work, you can't put anything next to an interdiction, except for ME chests. So this is the auto processing plant. When the miners on the front of the ship pick up an ore, they're sent to the processing plant. Each purification has an ore that it's dedicated to, and then the ones on the right hand side will just pick up any ore that's available. This is one of the most efficient ways of just constantly processing ore, because it means, well, there's always room for it to go, essentially. So when it comes in, just as you saw then, the tin ore came in, the purification tripled it to 3 tin clumps. It will then be sent to the crusher, where it will be put into tin dust. It will then be sent to the enricher, if I can find the correct one, where it will be turned into enriched tin dust. And then finally, it is sent to the smelting factories. However, I can't find the correct one, where it's eventually turned into ingots. If you want to use an effective auto processing factory, it's worth using level emitters. Level emitters work by keeping a certain amount of one item in the system. So a lot of recipes require osmium dust, so you use a level emitter to ensure that you have a peak amount, and that way you never run out. So instead of it automatically being processed, use level emitters to ensure that there is always 5,000 in the system. So just from a side view, you can see the fulmination generators. This is a standard 5x5 build. It's the biggest it needs to be. We've tested it on bigger builds. You don't need it any bigger than 5x5. That will be your max power output. There is actually a universal cable here, but from where it's been manipulated forward, it's kind of just bugged out slightly. See at the back, we have atomic assemblers, which are constantly either enriching the uranium, which will be turned into fissile fuel rods, or there's antimatter, which is being replicated by the atomic assembler. These all run on export and import buses, so it's a fully automated system. We don't ever need to touch it unless we're changing the thing being replicated. There's also Rednet on the back to suck it back into the system. That way we always have enough to run the fulmination generators. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. I will however shout out to these 4 people: Gingy, Deathstrike V, Eric for making all the fission reactors, and Mr. Happy, who's just he's the housewife of, essentially. He just does all the little bits that we can't be bothered to do, so thanks to all those guys. And that is pretty much it. Just gonna stand at the front so you can watch it mine. I will, however, do a shout out for Torched Core, who came up with this ingenious idea of sponging out oil. See, the sponge module in MFFS does not work on oil by default, so he came up with the idea of stabilizing a force field ahead of you. So this force field you can see in front is actually 10 blocks thick, and it's inverted. So any block that's 10 blocks in front of the miner will be filled in by a force field block, and that will eventually, when it's filled in, it will patch up the oil. So as you can see, once it's mined out a layer, the entire system moves forward again. Then it will start mining again. I will note, I do plan to continue my tutorial videos, but as you can see, I've been busy with this project. This project pretty much covers everything that I'm going to do in my future tutorial videos. As you can see, it's already covered MFFS mining. However, it's a different form of MFFS mining because you're doing it whilst moving. I'll be covering auto processing, ME, and MFFS setup. I won't be covering manipulators because I didn't make them, I don't understand them. If you want to understand manipulators, talk to Deathstrike V. So just don't ask me.